Every day in Central Texas, people pass by history without realizing it. It's hidden in cemeteries, towns, homes, and family stories. Today, we are bringing some of those stories forward. From freedmen's towns to local legends, these are just a handful of the voices and legacies that helped shape Texas. This is Hidden in Plain Sight, Black History in Central Texas. Well, every day, thousands of people race past this spot at 75 miles an hour on Interstate 35, often without ever knowing the history resting just beyond the road. Just yards from the interstate sits West Salado Cemetery. Now, this cemetery, it sits on land once part of the E.S.C. Robertson plantation. In 1879, the property was given to formerly enslaved men and women of Salado for a school, church, and a place to bury their dead. But evidence suggests burials there may have begun earlier during slavery itself. At one time, Salado's black population nearly matched its white population. Families helped build and settle the town. Yet much of that history has faded, leaving this cemetery as one of the last visible links to their legacy. Many of the graves are marked only by simple stones. Names are worn away, some are unknown entirely, but their presence speaks volumes of resilience, faith, and survival. So while traffic blurs past at highway speed, this sacred ground remains reminding us that Black history isn't always loud or visible, but it's always there waiting to be remembered. We are highlighting Crush Holloway, a Waco legend with a one-of-a-kind name. Crush Holloway got his unique name from one of the wildest events in Texas history, the famous 1896 crash at Crush. So back in January, I told you all about that spectacle, and that is when two steam locomotives crashed into each other outside of Waco, drawing thousands of people. Well, guess what? Crush Holloway's father was there, and his mother went into labor that very day. Well, his father was so moved by what he witnessed, he named his son after the event. Well, Crush Holloway went on to become one of the great baseball players to come out of Central Texas. He played professional ball in the Negro Leagues for nearly 2 decades, from 1921 to 1839, as a speedy, aggressive outfielder, and a leadoff hitter. Well, he was also known for his electric base running, sometimes even sharpening his spikes to intimidate the competition, and led his league in stolen bases. So from a Texas spectacle to the base paths of baseball history, Crush Holloway's story reminds us that local legends can also have a national impact. We are shining a light on a powerful and often overlooked piece of Central Texas history. Jeff Hamilton is believed to be the first free man of color to live in Temple. Hamilton was born into slavery in the 1840s and later enslaved by Sam Houston, the legendary Texas leader. He became Houston's trusted driver, aide, and bodyguard, traveling with him during political campaigns and witnessing major moments in Texas history firsthand. The KCEN interviewed Hamilton's great-grandson back in 2024.
Sam Houston purchased Jeff Hamilton off the auction block at the age of 8 years old as a playmate for his kids. And he raised him up as a member of the family. Taught him how to read and write, use knives, forks, and spoons and everything.
Well, Houston freed all of his enslaved people before the end of the Civil War. Hamilton later moved to Belton, where from 1889 until 1903, he worked as a janitor at Baylor College, which is now the University of Mary Hardin Baylor. He eventually retired to Temple to live with his daughter. So Jeff Hamilton died in 1941, just shy of his 101st birthday. Today, the city of Temple honors his legacy with Jeff Hamilton Park and a community pool. We are honoring a legacy rooted in land and history. Since 1865, one family's story has stood the test of time. It's the story of Jim Ed Snow and the freedmen's town of Lincolnville, now a part of Gatesville, a place that may no longer appear on a map, but whose legacy still stands strong more than 160 years later. Jim Ed Snow grew up in Coryell County on land his family owned since 1865. He had only a third-grade education, but his life tells a far greater story, one shaped by service to his country, devotion to his family, a deep connection to the soil beneath his feet, and the ancestors who worked it before him. Before his death last year, he reflected on how much the world around him had changed.
And I've seen a lot of changes a long time ago. I can remember when we used to come to town in a wagon, taking us an hour and a half. Now we can come to town in 10 minutes.
That land once sat inside a freedmen's town called Lincolnville, which was near Gatesville. It was founded by former slaves after the Civil War and named after Abraham Lincoln. One of its founders was Silas Snow, a man born into slavery who helped create a place where black people could finally grow roots. Generations later, that same land raised Jimette Snow. For his children, the land carries generations of labor.
So when you see like the hills and valleys in the land, some of that was natural, but most of that was done by my dad and his dad.
Jimette Snow saw farming change too.
It used to be just cotton. That was the biggest seller then. But now it's another seller. Wheat and corn.
But while tools changed, character didn't.
He helped a lot of people, you know, and he had a lot of respect for people, and people had a lot of respect for him.
That strength still moves his family.
I always try to make myself in the character like he was. Tough, very, very tough. Probably the toughest in the
His son Jonathan says his father led with love.
He was very proud of every single one of us growing up. I think he took pride in talking about us with his friends, and anytime he was meeting somebody, he would always introduce us with a big smile on his face.
Lincolnville eventually faded away, disappearing from county highway maps by the 1940s. But its legacy still stands on this land, held since freedom, shaped by generations, and carried forward by the Snow family.
In the last 5 years, I've probably learned more about my father than I probably knew the entirety of my life. So in learning that makes me want to learn more, and realizing that I have the ability to get that information because I have family that are still living, that grew up in this era of Lincolnville, that, you know, kind of experienced it. I can get that information that I'm looking for. So I know that that's not easy for a lot of people, and I can appreciate that.
And there's even more to Jimette Snow's story. He was a United States Navy veteran who served during World War II. He went on to create a successful excavating and demolition company, helping shape many of the prominent buildings still standing in the Dallas area today. If you want to learn more about the town of Lincolnville, there is a display at the Coryell Museum and Historical Center in Gatesville. And as we continue to cover more Black History Month stories, be sure to follow us on social media. Our area was once home to multiple freedmen's towns, communities built by formerly enslaved people who claimed land, freedom, and a future for their families. In addition to Lincolnville, freedmen's towns existed across McLennan County, Bell County, Falls County, and Limestone County. Many of those towns have disappeared from maps, but their stories, legacies, and descendants are still there. We are telling the story of a man whose life stretches across bondage and freedom, and whose music echoed through the Waco frontier. Well, his name was Dan McLennan, and he was born in 1849, enslaved to Neil McLennan. The man McLennan County is named after. Life on the frontier was harsh. His father, Alf, lost an ear during an attack on the McLennan farm. Well, Dan grew up hunting, fishing, and helping his enslaved family survive, and through it all, he carried something else, a fiddle, often wrapped in a flour sack, and a gift that would make him known far beyond the fields. So when the Civil War ended, Uncle Dan, he gained his freedom. He stayed connected to the McLennan family, who taught him to read and write. That was a rare skill for a man born a slave. Well, he married a woman named Anne, and together they raised 12 children. He worked cattle drives, farmed his own land, and built a life on his own terms. In Waco, he was loved. Black and white families hired him to play music at picnics, reunions, and celebrations. His fiddle brought people together in a divided time. Born a slave, but died a free man and remembered for the joy he brought to others. Dan McLennan's story reminds us that Black history isn't just about survival. It's about legacy. We are celebrating a true Texas trailblazer who helped shape the heart of Waco and the history of our state. So born in Mississippi in 1909, Oscar Ducange overcame early challenges in segregated schools. He earned a sociology degree from Xavier University, and he also served in World War II. So he came to Waco in 1948, where he began his long record of community service. From helping veterans to neighborhood residents, Ducange entered city politics. In 1972, he was elected to the Waco City Council. In 1974, he was elected mayor, and that made him the first African-American mayor of Waco and the first Black mayor of a major city in the state of Texas. Ducange was more than a symbol of progress. He was a leader who said, "I am not mayor of any faction or group. I'm mayor of Waco," pledging to serve every person with fairness and heart. Now, from civic leader to history maker, Oscar Ducange's legacy lives on, not just in history books, but in Waco with the Oscar Ducange Park, dedicated in his honor as a place for a community and celebration. We are firing up the grill on a story that's pure, clean history and a barbecue legacy that helped change the city. Meet Maurice Hamilton, Killeen's first Black businessman. On September 2nd, 1951, he opened Maurice's Real Pit Barbecue along U.S. Business 190. He would operate the restaurant for much of his life, serving up real pit barbecue and making history while doing it. But Maurice's impact went far beyond his storefront. He also was a sought-after caterer. When Killeen banker and Chamber of Commerce leader Roy J. Smith hosted military parties at his Nolan Circle home, Maurice Hamilton provided the barbecue, feeding soldiers and community leaders during a critical period of growth tied to Fort Hood. So in the 1940s and 50s, Killeen's Black population grew as Fort Hood expanded, bringing in Black soldiers and their families, which slowly shifted the city's racial makeup and opening the door for Black entrepreneurship. So when we talk about Killeen's transformation into the diverse city it is today, Maurice's Real Pit Barbecue isn't just a restaurant. It's a symbol of progress and Black history served hot.
Some sacred night, and I think to myself, and the wonderful world.
All right, so this morning we are turning back the clock to 1967 when jazz royalty made a stop right here in Central Texas. What you were just looking at was Louis Armstrong playing for soldiers at Fort Hood. But when the lights went down and the music stopped, Armstrong didn't just stay anywhere. He stayed in Belton at the home of a man who quietly made history of his own. L.B. Kinchin was a businessman, community leader, and principal of T.B. Harris High School. He was one of Central Texas's most important hosts during segregation, at a time when Black travelers were barred from hotels. He opened his South Belton home as a safe haven, welcoming Black professionals, entertainers, and national figures passing through Texas. Kinchin wasn't just offering a bed for the night. He was creating a space of dignity, fellowship, and culture. His home became a gathering place, earning him recognition in newspaper society columns across the state for his involvement in civic, religious, educational, and fraternal organizations. So today there is an effort to preserve that history. Community members are working to restore L.B. Kinchin's historic Belton home, the same house that once welcomed Black travelers and icons like Louis Armstrong, keeping a powerful legacy alive. We are spotlighting an extraordinary Central Texas success story, one that goes from mail routes to runways in Paris. So for years, he lived and worked in Waco. By day, he was a mail carrier delivering letters, but by night and on weekends, he was creating breathtaking works of art inspired by history, culture, and imagination. So that passion caught the eye of one of the most prestigious fashion houses in the world, Hermes. In the 1980s, Kermit Oliver, that's his name, he made history by becoming the only American artist ever selected to design silk scarves for Hermes, an honor typically reserved for elite European designers. His designs are now collector's items worn around the globe, from fashion lovers to royalty, all while Oliver remained rooted in Texas, staying humble and true to his craft. So the next time you think big dreams only live in big cities, remember this: a Waco mail carrier became a world-renowned designer, known for one of France's most iconic brands, proof that greatness can come from anywhere. We are sharing a story of courage, family, and a journey that changed generations. So more than 150 years ago, 435 freed men, women, and children packed up everything and set out from Kingstree, South Carolina for a better life. In 1867, that journey brought them to Marlin and Falls County. For generations, their names and stories faded into history, but thanks to modern genealogical tools, descendants are reconnecting with those ancestors, finally seeing their family history come full circle. Now, in June of this year, a memorial will be placed in Marlin. This is what it would look like, listing every known name of the freedmen who made that long and brave journey from South Carolina here to Texas. So a sister memorial was installed in Kingstree, South Carolina in May of 2025, just steps from the railroad station where it all began. Now, helping to lead this effort is David Anthony Taylor, founder and CEO of Black Pearls of Genealogy, a nonprofit committing to preserving Black family history and ensuring these stories are never forgotten. We have a special message for families in Marlin and across Falls County. In 1867, 435 freed men, women, and children journeyed from Kingstree, South Carolina to Marlin to build new lives after slavery. And this summer, a memorial honoring that historic journey will be unveiled. And if you believe you are a descendant, organizers say your presence is needed. So these are the names of the 435 men, women, and children who made that journey to Falls County. On July 11th at the Falls County Courthouse, there will be an unveiling and dedication of freedmen's monuments. So leading much of this effort is David Anthony Taylor. He is the CEO and founder of Black Pearls of Genealogy, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving and honoring Black family history through accessible records and research.
Names matter. It's not just, we could say 435 people and it just feel like a number. But when you see their names, you realize that they were real people. They were mothers, fathers, children, and grandparents. Someone can read a name on the memorial and think, that's my last name and that could be my family members. So the memorial doesn't just tell history, it kind of restores it.
So this will be the second monument to honor the people who made the journey. A sister memorial now stands in Kingstree, South Carolina. It was installed in May of 2025.
So the ending of the journey was in Marlin, Texas. So that's where the families ended up. So basically this is a sister memorial, and I can't start this story without finishing it because Texas also has a big part to play in the whole role.
So Black Pearls of Genealogy is still seeking additional funding and sponsors to complete the project and install the memorial. So if you would like to donate, you can visit their website, and we have made it easy for you with a direct link on kcentv.com. And again, if you are a descendant of the 435 freedmen, the organizers would like to hear from you. We are spotlighting the Jockey Club Barbershop, a Waco landmark where history, heritage, and haircuts all came together. So back in the early 1900s, the area around Bridge Street, known as the Square, was the heart of black-owned businesses in Waco. Among theaters, drugstores, and restaurants stood the Jockey Club Barbershop, the first black-owned barbershop in the city. It opened in 1920, founded by Woodrow Buster Anderson, and quickly became more than just a place for a trim. Even after surviving the devastating 1953 tornado and later being forced to relocate during urban renewal, the Jockey Club never lost its soul. Longtime barbers turned the shop into a community hub where conversations mattered just as much as the cut. Folks debated Dallas Cowboys trivia, they checked in on church members and shared plenty of laughs. And the chairs didn't just hold locals. Legends like Jackie Robinson sat there, along with standout athletes from Baylor University. So the shop closed in 2011, but it did reopen in 2016. And in 2023, it was officially named a City of Waco Historic Landmark. More than a barbershop, the Jockey Club remains a living legacy built on community, conversation, and generations of trust, still standing strong in Waco today. The stories you've heard today are only a glimpse of a larger story, one that still lives in the land. The families and the communities of Central Texas. Some places may be gone from maps and some names may be worn down by time, but their legacy remains. History is often closer than we think.